Women, if the soul of the nation, women is the soul of the nation, is to be saved. If you want to save the soul of a nation, I believe you must become its soul. This is who is saying. Orator Scott King tells, he asks women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe you must become its soul. So, good evening. With that wonderful quote on women empowerment, I greet once again all of you. You are welcome into Shitalath Conversations, yet another Sunday evening, 7 p.m. IST show. This is your host Jugal Koul, speaking with the depth of my heart and the warmth to each one of you for joining again into our yet another 67th historic show of Shitalath Conversations. I hope you all are doing very well. And today is a very special day also because we are speaking on the eve of our Independence Day. This is a very beautiful and delightful coincidence. And 75 years ago, uh, India became free from the colonial rule of United Kingdom, and it has been a very long marathon, protracted struggle and journey by the freedom fighters, by the people, by the thinkers who sacrificed, by the general masses who sacrificed their lives, their wealth and everything for this nation. And today we are free. Here we are after 75 years of our independence. So this is a very great occasion. We must salute and respect and be delightful on this occasion. And yet we must also remember that freedom we got is not easily got. It has taken a lot much sacrifice, lot much price we had to pay, our ancestors had to pay for getting this freedom. So we should not spoil it, we should not waste it in small parochial caste, color, region, religion, these kind of a things. We must strengthen our nation, and nation will strengthen us. We all are part of this great nation, this free, known as free India. So once again, I rise here to greet all of you on the eve of Independence Day. Jai Hind. Shitalath conversation over the years, around 1.5 year has gone by. It has graduated into a very sublime, a very experiential, very delicate, very romanticizing, very inquisitive tool that invents the stories and sagas from this wonderful land known as Crown of India, Kashmir, in which are embedded the ancient glories, ancient civilizational bounties, ancient sciences, treatises, travelogues, across its contours, across its consciousness, and it is also been visibly felt into our folk memory, into our traditions, irrespective of our religions, irrespective of whatever we practice. And our spiritual sciences like Kashmir Shaivism is famous across the globe, and as well as we have our own, Sufi parampara known as Rishi parampara. So that is how this entire Shitalath conversation, by and large, has been able to touch in these areas, in these arenas of our civilization, its strengths, and all these things. Our contemporary times, we can see that lot many people, lot many men and women, Kashmiri women and men, they are all, representing the epitome of the different shades of our public life, from you can say, I mean, their intelligence, their brilliance, their creativity is something which is very unique. I think this is a gift from our traditions, from our ancestry, from our genetics, from our history, from our strong, stout history, glorious history. So that's how it is. And Kashmir, I can say, we have been gradually able to amble in Shitala conversations, and touch the finer nuances and notes of this wonderful civilization through near and far time stories through flora and fauna, through landscape, through culture, through transitions, through different dimensions of monarchies, different dimensions of political changes, and through through colors, through bonhomie, through brotherhood. uh, we have had enough of I mean, representing all the segments and all the areas and all the shades of our civilization till now. Our 66 episodes have gone by, and we have tried somewhere down line, tried to justify and be in touch with the soul of the civilization. That's how it is. Kashmir, time immemorially, have seen women of great substance, valor, revolutionary minds, intelligence, wisdom. From the times, from very, very ancient times, our first women empress was Yashomati, who was coronated almost 5,000 years ago. And there are a number of stories embedded into into our terrain, into our the place consciousness, where we find the women who are at the same time the warriors, and they are at the same time the mothers, and at the same time they play the role of an intellectual. Of late, you can see in the 11th and 11th century, we had Kutarani, Rani Deda. Stories are in number. I mean, we can repeat them on some other another occasion, one by one. But here, I wanted to say that we have had a legacy of very stout, very strong women in our past. Our contemporary times is also gallowed with Kashmiri women uh, going into the all aspects of our public life. They represent in the oceanology, they represent in the engineering, in the medicine, in the art, in the culture, in the literature, in the oceanology, in the spacecraft, in the corporate world, in the becoming civil servants. So they are almost representing all the aspects and all the shades of our public life, and they have risen to very, 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 very astronomical, very, very pinnacles of the heights, pinnacles of this, grandeur, pinnacles of the capacities, and along with the men, along with their male counterparts. So that's how our present day Kashmiri women are. See, you can see our women running a ship in the sea, driving a ship in the sea, flying an aircraft in the air, being in the army, going to the mountaineering. So we have our present women are really they're really brilliant. But it was not so a century back. In the beginning of last century, we had very few number. We can count them on numbers. Although they were very epitome of they were legendary, they were brilliant, they were spectacular and remarkable, and their contribution to the society, the present state of women, which is now glorious, is somewhere down the line is contributed by these great women of who were there in the beginning of the last century. So we have had this wonderful. I in the Shitalat conversations also I tried to do collect the modern legendary personalities, their lives, their times, their life and times, their conversation. We had a conversation with their kith and kin, with their daughters, with their people around, and we found that they were how remarkable they were. So it included probably Dr. Girjadar. There was a conversation on Dr. Girjadar. There was a conversation on that owner of the Ratanani Hospital. That I have forgotten her name. That she is also Dr. Jagat Mohan. There was a program on her and her husband, and then we had Professor Nirja Muttu herself. She was there to talk about her times and her life. Today we are in a very, very privileged condition. It's a very highly joyous situation that we are going to unravel the story and anecdote of a very wonderful, amazing women personality of Kashmir, a remarkable one, one of the tallest women personality of Kashmir, who has been, the reformer, the revolutionary, compassionate, and who had many, many, many wonderful, deeper, astronomical, divine dimensions hidden in her persona. I'm talking about, you know, Mehmooda. Miss Ma'am. We call her. They used to call her Miss Ma'am because she was a bachelor. She didn't marry in her life. Mehmooda Shah. Who doesn't know Mehmooda Shah? Mehmooda Shah. When everybody rises to his seat, whenever we hear the name of Mehmooda Shah, I have been seeing the reviews. We had put up photographs of this program, the promo of this program, and there are hundreds of reviews by the generations of the students and the general people who talked very high about this great personality known as Mehmooda Shah. So she was the former, principal of Government Women College, Maulana Azad Road, Srinagar. She was the former, alumni of this Melanson School, Fateh Kadal, former alumni of, Kinnaird College, Lahore, where she completed her graduation and she did her post graduation, and then she from the Lahore University, from the Punjab University, and then she was also the principal of her high school in the Maharaja's time. She was also the former member Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. Mehmooda Shah, was known to be a very, very sounding, brilliant academician of the state, rather of the country, and who has been able to inculcate the sense of self-esteem, emancipation, equality, modernity to the women of Kashmir. It is her spirit and her famous adage, which always she used to say, that keep your head held high. So that was what Mehmooda Shah was. It is she was honored with Padma Shri, rather conferred Padma Shri, for his outstanding work into the public life, and as well as she was also she received an award for the outstanding student of the century from alma mater, you know, this school, Melanson School. Today we are with us in the studio none other than the proud nephew of Mehmooda Shahji, and he is not only nephew, he is a very close confidant of Mehmooda Shah, and certainly this is going to be a very, very brainstorming, heartstorming session in which he is going to explore the life and times, the private and the public life of this great personality of Kashmir, and certainly we are going to know about many things which are not yet into the public domain. I think that is the privilege of today's guest. His name is Munir Shah, and he is himself a great engineer who has worked from the prestigious who studied from the prestigious institution of then known as Regional Engineering College Srinagar, and has served in the very senior positions in the corporate as well as the government sector. He lives in Dubai, and since 1992, and he's been living there since long. And he is basically he'll be joining us live from Dubai. So it's a matter of great pleasure and great honor to have a personality, such a personality who will unravel yet another personality, her aunt, her fufi, we call it Urdu Hindi, Mehmooda Shahji. So let's not waste much more time. Let's invite this Munir Shahji into the studio with great warmth and enthusiasm. Munir Shah Saab, you're welcome into the Shitalath Conversations 67th historic show. It's a really great honor and pleasure to have a personality like you talking about another great, legendary personality, remarkable personality of Kashmir, your aunt, Mehmooda Shah.
Good,
So, you're welcome, sir.
good evening, Jugalji. Thank you for having me on your show. It is an honor to be on your show, and I must say that you are doing a wonderful job. The link that you are making to join people and people to know about what Kashmir was and what Kashmiriyat is and what people in Kashmir did. It is really, you're doing a human service. I congratulate you on that. I say my namaste to all the people who are watching this show. Good evening. Welcome to the show and wish you a very happy Independence Day tomorrow. I'm glad that we are speaking on the eve of Independence Day. I'm sure my aunt would be very happy up there saying that she's being discussed on a day which she struggled for and she fought for. And this is what brought about the independence.
Thank you very much, Munirji. Your words are very, very angelic, and they really touch here. And certainly, there's an old saying that well begin is half done. So we have already begun. And first of all, as per the, I would like to say that as per the paradigm and the structure of the program of Sheetal of Conversation goes, in our first episode, in our first segment, we asked our guest to go back to his childhood memories, know Kashmir through his eyes. So today we want to put your binocular in our eyes, or all the spectators, and we want to know about Kashmir that you knew, Kashmir that you witnessed, its waterways, its social ecology, its cultural ecology, your family, structure, institutions, inspiring people, personalities, born homie. I think you'll brief us on this entire vision of yours, entire nostalgia of yours about the Kashmir that you saw. Please start.
Uh,
Please illustrate.
it's a question you have asked me, which is very complicated to really answer in a very short time. But I can tell you this: I was born in a place called Drugjan in the year 1949. And Kashmir during my childhood days was a place which, if I tell somebody what it was, they may think that it's just a story, or it's just making up this story, because it was something which is beyond the realms of imagination of youngsters of today as to what Kashmir was and how things were. First, there was no distinction between people. I think we were just Kashmiris. It was
Yes,
it was not that I am a Hindu or I'm a Muslim or I'm a Sikh. It was not there. We were all Kashmiris, and there was a camaraderie between all the religions. And I studied in a convent school, a Christian school, and nobody ever told me why was I studying in a English Christian school. I used to go to the church. I used to say their prayers. I used to use holy water and say name of the Father, Son, of the Holy Ghost, and kneel before the altar. Never anybody questioned, and it was nobody ever questioned this. That was Kashmir. Kashmir was devoid of any structure as such. And I can say that even if you look at the functions that we had, they were all joint functions. There were times when the Kashmiri Muslims would not eat meat because it was a certain occasion for the saint of that area would not eat meat. Or even when they would go to Surah Sharif for the first 3 days,
yes,
while going, they would not eat meat. Only after they went to Surah Sharif, they would come and eat meat. So this was the tradition. This was how Kashmir was. You asked me about the waterways. The Dal was so clean you can't imagine. You could just drink water off the Dal without being worried that you're going to fall sick. The people were so loving, so caring, and so simple. And if I tell this to anybody now today, they will think that I'm just making up a story. But believe you me, that's how it was. That's how things were. We never felt any distinction between races, culture, religion, whatever. But we were Kashmiris. That's it.
so that's so wonderful. Uh, and what about your family? What about your family? And you lived in this street, and tell us something about your growing up years, your school and college, the people who influenced your life. Yeah.
Yes, I can. You see, my school, as I told you, I started my school in convent, and later I shifted to Burn Hall. And in convent, I think I was impressed by Mother Peter. She was a very angelic person. She was the principal of the school, and I think of her so many times. I was too young, but I still remember her. And there were some teachers who I still remember. We had a Cherry Clark, Colonel Clark's daughter. They used to come in
Okay.
a buggy. I must have been maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I still remember her. I mean, this was the link between the teachers, and and if you didn't go to school one day, the nuns would ask you next day, why didn't you come to school? And if you made a story, they would have known the exact reason why you have not come, because the previous day they would have found out from your home as to whether everything was all right, why is he not come to. So they knew everything. They would follow everything. So there was, you couldn't make a story and say that, I had this or I had that. They would know everything. And that's how it went. From uh, from school, I went to straight to the engineering college. Engineering college was a wonderful place to be because we were young adolescent children, and I think that environment itself was fantastic. Naseem Bagh itself was a lovely campus, and although we had by that time developed certain trends which were not very uh, convenient or very healthy, but that's how things went. But still, things were, you never felt any difference. Even in the school, college, there was no difference. We were all together. We would eat off the same plate. We would, play together. We would whatever tricks we had to do or whatever we did everything together. That's how it was. Now you asked me about my family. Now for my family, in fact, you will have to go back to my grandfather as a young boy in the late 19th century. Now, you have to make sure know that this is the 19th century I'm talking of. Left his home, left looking after his ancestral shrine because that was the job that we were doing. We were looking after a shrine and performing the religious duties of the shrine. He left all that. He did his metric, and he was picked up by a British company, wood company, and they sent him to Durban. For
Oh,
5 years, he stayed in Durban. He got trained there, and when he came back, the Maharaja appointed him as a forest ranger and posted him to Udhampur. In Udhampur, he met his wife to be. She was from the clerical family, the top Qazi family there in Udhampur. They
okay.
married and they had 8 children, four
Oh,
male and four females. The eldest was a female. She was Jahan Ara. She married the son of the then finance minister in the Maharaja's government, and she had a son who retired as the chief secretary of the state, Aga
ah,
Muzaffar,
Agam.
and followed by her was the son, Sayyid Nazir Ahmad Shah. He retired as the session judge of the Jammu and Kashmir court, and he was on the language commission, government of India, when the trouble between the languages was going on, and that was the time he was a part of that commission. Then after that, we had Begum Jalaluddin, another educationist. She had done her diploma from US. Then we had Begum Qureshi. She had done her diploma from UK. And then came Miss Mehmooda Ahmad Ali Shah, who we're going to talk about later, but I'm just giving you a brief. After
Yes.
that came Sayyid Ahmad Shah, who was known as Shamji. All through his adult life, he was known as Shamji because my grandmother, always delivered on the move. And he was born in Kolhai. And that's the time when the yatra was to. She was expecting when the yatra was done, and one of the sadhus came and told her that a Sham will be born in your house. And that
Oh,
winter, in December, he was born, and that's
nice.
how all his life. Uh, I was going through a note by Mr. Paramu, which also added to that. This was They said that they went to Mata Bhadrakali in Handwara district. I don't know if you are aware of that shrine that was also supposed to be, and
Heard
most.
about it. I've heard about
Yes,
it. Yeah.
yes, and because he was not keeping good health, so they just went to pray there for his good health. And a sadhu came out and he said, "Shamji is all right. Shamji is all right." And all his life, then he remained Shamji. He joined the Subhash Chandra Bose's army during the freedom struggle, and he
Oh my
went to
God.
fight there. And then he came back and started the Jammu and Kashmir militia when the raiders had come in, along with my father, Sayyid Zamir Ahmad Shah, who followed next. And this youngest was Dr. Sayyid Nasir Ahmad Shah, who my cousin spoke to you about. She was one of the guests on there, and everybody knows about him. So that is what my family was. And my mother, Sajida Zamir Ahmad, she was a teacher in a primary school when Miss Mehmooda saw her. She was the headmistress in that school, so decided to have her brother, my father, married to her, and she was married when she was in the 10th class. The family made her study. She did her FA, she did her BA, she did her B.Ed, she did her MA, all after her marriage, and that's how it went. And the tradition in the family was that nobody wore any gold because my grandfather called my mother and he used to call her a Kashmiri girl. And he said, "Kashmiri girl, You come here and don't wear this gold and all, because these are chains. Don't get yourself locked up in chains. You should be free, independent of such issues. And thereafter, neither Miss Mahmooda nor Sajida Zamir Ahmad nor the other two sisters, Begum Jalaluddin or Begum Qureshi, ever wore any jewelry. So this
Oh,
is a
that's so unique, so wonderful. Uh, yes, you were talking about. You were just also talking about your days in the institutions, and you talked about your father. You especially your father, your relationship with your father and siblings. I want to have understand how it worked in those times.
You see, we were a joint family, and the anchor was Miss Mehmooda Ahmad Ali Shah, and she was the one who took care of all her brothers, younger brothers, the three of them, because
Okay.
the eldest brother had married and he had moved away, and the daughters were all married and they had gone into their own homes. So these three brothers were left on their own, and there was my grandfather had passed away. So Miss Mahmooda took it on herself, and she sacrificed everything to bring up this family, and we owe it to her that whatever we are today is because of her.
That's so
Hello.
great, so
Yeah.
wonderful. You talked about Kashmir and other things. Now let's come down to the subject. It was you beautifully. You want to narrate something more from your childhood, from your own memory? Can you?
No,
You want to jog?
I'll, as I keep speaking, maybe if I get something, I'll let you know. I'll interrupt
Okay.
in between, but I'll give you. There are
Yes.
plenty.
You have three remarkable women who are your mothers around you. One was Dr. Girjadar. She was
Yes,
your aunt.
I have three
Another
ladies.
another another was your mother, who was director of school education. Another was your Fufi
Yes,
Mehmooda ji.
yes, yes,
And today we are going to, because we already had discussion. We don't know about your mother. You will during the course of descent of this program, we'll also come to know about that. But certainly, I want to understand one thing: what was the making of Mehmooda ji? Because let's
yes.
talk about Mehmooda ji, central theme of today's program
Okay.
conversation. What was the
You see,
making of Mehmooda ji? From where does she start? What influenced her in the childhood? Was she a gifted child from the God, that she had those very very remarkable, unparalleled qualities and traits in her personality? Where was the development happen? How did her impressionable childhood, indelible? They say, na, your childhood is a time when all the impressionate things happen in you. So where did that happen? What was her making? How did she come up? Let's know
yes.
about that. Yeah.
You see, as I told you about my grandfather, he left his ancestral business for looking after because he felt that that was exploiting the poor by telling them that I will give you a taweez and you will go to heaven and all. He just gave
Oh,
that up, walked out, and then because teachers were not available, he saw to it that his daughters, he taught them, got teachers home. He would get teachers home to teach them, and he moved to Fateh Kadal after he retired from Bunyar. They moved to Fateh Kadar. And this
Fateh.
Melanson High School was in Fateh Kadar, where my aunt joined this school and she did her metric from there. She was the first Muslim girl from that school to do her metric.
Aye.
I cannot vouch for this perfectly whether she was really the first, but she was given the Student of the Millennium Award by the school, and she did extremely well in her. She was a very brilliant student, and
Okay.
she had a father who taught her to respect every religion, to respect every human being, and to walk with her head high. This was the training that she got from her father, and he
Oh,
himself was a very strict disciplinarian, and he would not tolerate any nonsense. If he said something, it had to be done. It had to be done. If he knew something had to be done, he would do it no matter what it took to do. And similarly, my grandmother, I think she was beyond her time. She was maybe 200 years ahead of her time. And
oh,
we used to, winter, we used to move to Jammu. And in Jammu, all the women, we had a temple next to our house, and they would come for satsang. And after that, they would come to my grandmother, sit with her, chit chat with her, talk with her. They would, spend the afternoon discussing all the subjects in the world. And there was never any rancor that they are Hindus or we are Muslims or anything, nothing like that.
These things were not there in those point of time.
Absolutely. Now you're saying about my childhood. There was principal Jammu College was Dr. Krishna Mohan, and her mother we used to call her Uji. If I
Okay.
felt sick, she would come and I would request them that please send Uji and she will do some jadoo tuna to me and I'll get all right. And she had a small knife in her pocket. She would just circle it around my head, and you believe you me, I would be fine after that, as if I would be cured. So it was just like that. So
Okay.
that's what was the thing, and that's where she learned all this. My aunt learned this from her father, from her mother, because they were great institutions in their own self. And after she did her matric, she went to Cunaid College, Lahore, where she did her BA, B.Ed, MA, and she was a firebrand student there. She wasn't a part of the Communist Party, but her thinking was on the communist lines. So there she was in contact with Balraj
Socialist.
Sahni, Chetan Anand, Inder Gujral, Raj
In the,
Bans, all these elite people, Mazhar Ali, they were the people who were, were leftist leanings, and she had very, very strong leftist leanings, and that's and she was really firebrand, and she was outstanding student there too, and she had made a name for herself. She had plenty of opportunities to live there, but she refused all that. She
she came back.
she had a very good friend in Faiz Ahmed Faiz. She
Yeah,
went to
fair.
him for advice, and he also told her that since you believe in all these things, you must go back to Kashmir and see that ladies there can come up and they can stand on their own, they are empowered, and they can walk with their heads high, and nobody can exploit them. So she came to Kashmir. She joined a school in Amira Kadal, and this was near Zanana Park. Now that Zanana Park doesn't exist, I think it was opposite the Secretariat. And from there, she was transferred to Baramulla because the convent had closed down because of the Kabali raid. She
Yes,
stayed there till
1947.
54. In 54, she was transferred and she came and became the principal of the women's college. Maybe there were just a handful of students in the women's college. The staff was also less, and therefore there was staff from outside. She was one of the most brilliant people that you could have had, and she was made even more brilliant by the people that she had as a team. She had, without a team you cannot work. You cannot be an island to yourself. So she had a wonderful team. Uh, there were teachers from outside like Mrs. Hassan, Balkis Fatima, Miss Sultana. They were the teachers from outside. Locals were Shamla Mufti ji, Krishna Mishri
Nijamatu.
ji, Neja Matu ji. Yes,
Rita Jitendra
Amina
also.
Paul.
Rita
Name,
Jitendra.
yeah,
Rita
yes,
Jitendra also.
Miss Yes, Rita Langar, Tapaswi Ram, Satya Bhushan, one of the leading educationists. He was also a teacher in Women's
Satyabhushan.
College. Yeah, and then you had in the science you had Mr. Shamazdeen, Mr.
Shamas.
Jafar, Mr. Gyasuddin, Professor Kak. They were exemplary people, and
Krishna
you
Misri.
had you had a tremendous library. She had a library which is unimaginable, and the library was looked after by Mrs. Jalali, Mrs. P. N. Jalali's wife, and P. N. Jalali had an active role during the freedom struggle and
Yeah, he
the
was a
term
freedom
of.
fighter.
Yes, so he was a great freedom fighter, and his wife was the librarian. We had another Mrs. Devki Dhar. She was also another teacher there. I'm sorry, I may not remember all the names, and people
No, it
might,
doesn't matter. I mean,
but
it's a conversation. After
her
all, whatever
brother, her
we
brother,
recollect.
Dr. Bhan, was a brilliant educationist himself, and I think he
Yes.
retired as the vice chancellor of the Kashmir University. Then her students became principals also, amongst which was Sugra Hafiz, became Professor Andrabi became a principal,
Andrabi. Nusrat
and
Andrabi.
Krishna Misri ji became a principal. Shamla Mufti ji became a principal, and there were so many students who were produced. It's unimaginable. That college at that time was showcased for its brilliance, and I don't think there was any eminent person who came to Kashmir and did not visit the college. It was, you had the topmost people coming there. You had Dr. Rajendra Prasad coming. You had Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru coming. You
Jawaharlal
had
Nehru.
yeah, you had Indiraji herself. Then you had Mr. Bevan, Amrita Sen, Sardar Jafri, Krishan Chandar, Salma Siddiqui. You name them. You name them,
As
and they would
Ahmad,
come. Yes, Faiz Ahmad. You name them, and they would be there. And then she was very fond of teaching. She was fond that girls must develop their own skills. So they were taught dancing. There was dramatics. And
dramatic.
in the drama, I'll tell you, there's very interesting stories about the drama. They didn't have a stage. They didn't have a auditorium. There was a
Oh,
big staircase, and after the staircase there was a landing. So the landing became the stage, and they would
oh,
put a shamyana in front of that, and you had people like Dr. Karan Singh, his wife, come and watch the plays, and they did plays of all sorts of. It's unimaginable that women's college was doing Oscar Wilde's plays, Moliere's plays, Shakespeare's play, Sheridan School for Scandal, Oscar Wilde's Importance of Being Earnest, Comedy of
importance of
Errors by
being
Shakespeare,
yeah.
and Tagore's Red Oleander, in which one of your guests, Sudha Kaul, performed a wonderful. Her
Sudha
role
Kaur.
was really, yes, it was appreciated by everyone, and all this was being led by Nirja Mattu, because literature department debates. They used to have debates every week. Every week they had debates to encourage girls into public speaking, into thinking for themselves, devising ideas. They had plays in Urdu. All Moliere's plays
Molyer
were,
song.
yes,
Oh,
adapted. This
they were
uh,
ahead of their times. She was not
this
a dramatist, and yet she could go into
yes,
the very branch of a
Dinanath
very, very
Nadim,
high international
Dinanath,
literary. Yeah.
Dinanath Nadimji's Yambor Bambarzal was
Yamadol,
choreographed. Opera was done.
opera, great
Yes,
opera.
was Mr. Sopori, Shambhunath Sopori was the music person. He was the one who did that. There were shadow plays. They used to do shadow plays. There were
Oh,
plays in Urdu. There were plays in Hindi. There were plays in Punjabi. Used to have them. And then she did Haba Khatun. She got girls to do Haba Khatun and
why?
sent them to Delhi to appear in this drama festival. The girls were not even crossed the Banhal. They had not even seen, and they were sent to
Delhi.
meet with girls of Miranda College, Loreto College,
My
and the
goodness, Miranda. That's a
yes,
great
and
institution.
college was such that there was not a soul who came from outside was not brought to the college, and he would be entertained, and there would be singers. They had lovely singers that the college produced. This Ghulam Nabi Azad's wife, Shamima Azad, Asha Kaul, Sunaina Kaul, they were there. They were fantastic singers. And again, Mr. Sopori was the teacher for music for them.
Bhajanji.
Yes. In mathematics, they had Ardhanjeev Jala, a fantastic mathematician. She had a wonderful team, dedicated team of people who were even more dedicated than she was, because they had to showcase her dedication. So it was always an improvement on this. The college was something which was it was
It had become a kind of a great institution in her times, and that's how Mehmooda ji made this institution and the generations of students at par with the landscape of what the country had. So that is something very, very rare, and that is something very unparalleled. What work she has done, the way you explained it, I mean, I'm just taken aback. The participation in the national level festivals with a very prestigious institution from a college which had never, the students which had never gone out of Banihal, and then interactions being conducted and making everybody. Probably she was a woman with a great mission in her mind and heart.
now
She,
that's only the half story. Sorry for cutting you on that. She
yes.
would she would take students out for tours to all over the country, to Calcutta, to Madras,
Oh,
to yes, to Goa, name the place, to Banaras. And today it's very easy. Today you have the internet. Today you have phones. Those days these things had to be planned over the year.
very different.
You had to catch the bus and go to Pathankot first, because the railhead was at Pathankot, and then take the responsibility of taking these girls. There was no communication. There were no mobile phones. You could not contact. Once the girls left Srinagar, then you were at the mercy of the power that be, because telephone lines, even Jammu, would not be easy to get connections, and they have to make arrangements for them in various colleges to be put up, in Madras to be put up in the best college, to be Bombay to be put up in the best college. She had to, all this needed a lot of hard work, and the whole team would put this effort, take these girls who had never even seen Jammu. They had not seen a train. They had not, this was, everything was for the first time, and they would go. And then every summer they would have camps in Gulmarg, 15 days, 15 days in Pahalgam. Again, girls would do some skits there, small cultural
Skit,
programs. Yes,
culture
on the
program.
final day, and people would be called to witness all that. And it was full of active sports. There were so many sports going on, and she
So
encouraged all
nice.
that.
It's so wonderful.
And
It is. Yeah, please
she
continue.
was a very strict disciplinarian, and she chose to have this white uniform for the girls. Now, a lot of people would think that this is, getting you put them in a cover, a shield, like, don't allow them the freedom to wear what they want. But it's not like that, because at that time, the difference between the rich and the poor was so much that it would
Yes,
create another caste difference in this. So she said, no, everybody must have the same dress. So whether you came from a very rich family or you were a family from a
ordinary
very
family.
ordinary family, you had the same dress.
Uniformity of uniform.
Yes, so you
Uniformity
were
of.
absolutely, so you were cut to size, everybody was the same size. Nobody was different. And then she wanted to encourage democracy among the students. They would
Oh,
have elections for the student president,
oh, that's good.
and girls would elect the student president, and they would have a committee. The student union would have a committee which would recommend cases for scholarship or aid, merit means aid, whatever. It was all done, and it was in news to me also when I heard your last speaker, Mrs. Neercha Mattu. A Assamese girl was also chosen
Yes.
as a student president. So you can imagine, that is Kashmir. That time, an Assamese girl studying in Kashmir became elected as the student president.
I mean, where has that gone suddenly? My gosh.
So
Such a
that's why I
wonderful
told you
country.
that when I tell somebody these stories, or when I tell them how my childhood was, I think they think that, hey, this guy is bluffing or he's gone off his head. I think he's become senile. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's how Kashmir was.
How would you define, just a minute for an interjection, how would you define totality, although it's very difficult to define such a vast personality, gigantic personality, who was so much into, I mean, very diversified things, and her mission, she was a missionary at Zeal. But yet again, I would like to say, as a nephew, as a very close confidant who had observed her family life as well as public life, how would you define her? People say that she was a disciplinarian, she was an administrator. Somebody says that she had a compassionate heart within, and somebody says that she was a personality of a very far vision, which nobody could judge. How exactly would you define what Mehmooda ji was?
You see, it's very difficult to put it in one word or to tell you exactly. But there are some more incidents which I'll tell you. She was a mother to everybody.
Oh,
She cut across everything.
yeah, they don't.
Was it,
She didn't have this.
was it the Communist Party? Was it the National Conference? Was it the Congress? You will be surprised that Mr. Jyoti Basu's son, stayed with us
Yeah.
in our house when the Naxal movement was at its peak. He wanted to find a safe place for his son. His son Chandan Basu lived with us. There was a South Indian leader, Marxist leader. His girl stayed with us. S.A. Dange would come. Nirmala Deshpande
Dange,
would come. Yes,
communist.
it, you name it, and and she cut across. People would come to her for help.
She was always the giver.
Yes,
No.
in fact, Sanjay and Rajiv were in our house the day Panditji passed away. They
Oh,
were staying with us. She was so close with these families, she could have been
families.
anything. I know she was offered the highest jobs to come to in Delhi. Mr. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, when he was minister, not when he was president,
Not
when
the
he was
president.
minister.
He was
Manubai
minister.
Karim Chagla when he was minister, Inder Gujral when he was minister. They requested her, please come to Delhi. But no, she was dedicated and committed. For her, it was the college. It was the college
Great.
and nothing. And then she became an MLC. And when as the MLC, you are supposed to fill in your economic. You have to give what is your property, what you have, what you don't have. And the guy who was filling found that she had nothing. She didn't even have a house of her own. She was living in an evacuee property house.
Right.
So he said, "Ki, where are your fixed deposits? How many fixed deposits do you have?" So she said, "What fixed deposits? Each girl that leaves the college after education is my fixed deposit. And what she does outside is the interest on my fixed deposit."
Right. Rare person. I
You
would
see,
say she was not only a rare Kashmiri personality, she was a rare Indian personality of her times. I
so
mean, we need to explore her story and tell it to the world. Yeah, please.
people used to come from India and to seek shelter with her, and she would give shelter. As I was talking about the college, I forgot to mention there was a teacher who used to come from England. Uh, Mrs. Godfrey was her name, I think, and she also used to teach literature. There was Zia Durrani, there was Miss Shamiri. I'm sorry because these
Shamiri.
names were left out. I mean, they were the ones who were doing the Professor Andrabi was there. There were so many. Uh,
I wanted to
uh,
interview Nusrat Andrabi, but she had already left this
yes,
world.
yes, she just passed away very recently. She was the one. She was a very good actor. She used to take part in plays. Suraya Mattu, she was an active participant of plays.
Krishna ji is too
Uh,
old. I talked to her on telephone once, but she was not, her health was not good. She is slightly older,
Mrs.
so I
Shamlal
couldn't.
Saraf's daughter, who is no longer there, she also passed away. Sudesh Saraf. She was Sudesh Jutsi later on. She's also not. These were they were all taking active part in the
She was
plays.
very compassionate. One of the subscribers of your promo, day for yesterday, she wrote that I was in PUC and I was pregnant and I was in a very bad shape, and she helped me out and reached to me and helped me out. I mean, going with the that Hazari system and the
Yes,
attendance and other
she
things.
would do that. The right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, and the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. She had employed people in her college. She had somebody from Ramban. She saw a lady struggling to make a living. She brought her. She was Mai Shiv Devi. She was looking after the canteen. I mean, there were so many people that she had. I forgot to mention her right hand man Friday was Hridaynath Miskeen, clerical staff, and so devoted, I cannot tell you. But times put them away somewhere, and I don't know. We never got a chance to meet them again.
Munirji, it was I mean, gigantic ocean of talent and brilliance. I heard that our Chief Minister Sadiq Saab had spotted her talent, and he brought her. It is in his time she became the Chief Minister, the principal of the Women's College.
No, no,
Was it earlier or yeah?
she became principal when Sheikh Saab was the prime minister of the state.
Okay,
Yeah, she
much
was.
before.
Yeah, and then Bakshi Saab came, and you see when these plays were being enacted, there was this apple cart, Sheridan School for Scandal, and in that I think one of the plays didn't go well with the people in power, so she was for a certain time transferred to Jammu for a few
Oh,
months. Yeah, so nothing was easy. Even doing these things was not easy because it was misconstrued, and so,
people had those
but Sadiq
health.
Saab was a very close friend, and he was a neighbor, and his sister was also a very active worker in the women's struggle, and she was leading the show along with the Misri sisters were there. Begum
Mystery
Abdullah was
sisters.
there. Yeah, these were BPL Bedi, his wife Frida Bedi.
Bedi, sir. Kill Bedi.
Yes, so these
Naya
were the
Kashmir.
people.
I mean,
Yes,
who drafted Naya Kashmir. Although
and
there is a story behind it, another story.
so these were the people who Rajbans was there, and there were people. There were so many people.
I mean, she had a very personal relationship. I heard that Indira Gandhi used to visit her whenever she used to be in Valley, and then Faiz Ahmad Faiz and other political poets, intellectuals, public figures, as you explained. I mean, they all had a one-to-one liaison with her. Who was the
Yes,
most special personality with which she gelled very well, especially into the national and international scenario.
Uh, I don't know what you mean by that, but Indira Gandhi was a very personal friend. I mean, they were very close. She was very close to, but as I said, Sardar Jafri,
Sadar Jafri,
Krishan Chandra,
Azam Films,
uh,
Krishan Chandra.
uh, Mr. Dhawan came and he sang "Hum Honge Kamyab" with the students. He was, the film artist. He came to the college. Uh, Tibet Bakal used to come and play his santoor.
Wow,
Tibet,
wonderful.
Muhammad Abdullah Tibet Bakal. There was a gentleman who used to teach them dancing. I forgot Kathak and all the Indian classical dances. He used to especially come and teach the girls dancing. It was just
Ramanand Sagar had a close because Ramanand Sagar was
yeah.
used to
Because
Lahore.
they were Kashmiris. No, they were Kashmiris. So
Okay.
they were all
Yes, sure.
Kashmiris. Yeah.
And the Gulam Rasul Santosh, the painter, the great
Yes,
painter.
yes, he was there. Well, everybody was one. You knew
But
everybody.
Indraji used to stay with her, and it is something very great. I mean, a personality, a nationally, internationally famous personality like Indraji, always saw to it whenever she was in Delhi,
She
she
she used
stayed with
to
them.
she used to put up with Dr. Nasir whenever she would come. She came for my wedding. She was there for all the 3 days of my marriage. She was there. She ate in the trami with the other guests. I I couldn't find that photograph. Otherwise, I'd have sent you that photograph to be put on the promo. But I couldn't find that. But there's a
Oh,
photograph
great
of her.
days, great times.
Yes, eating off the plate where others are also there sitting around.
Yes, I want to say one thing, Malab. She was conferred with Padam Shri, I think probably 2012 or
2012.
sometime like that, and then she was also the outstanding student of the
2006, she got the Padam Shri. She got in 2006, and 2012 she was conferred the Student of the Century by
outstanding
the
of the
yes,
century.
yes.
So that's a
2000
very remarkable title, outstanding student of the century. It's
Century,
not an
yes.
ordinary. It's not an ordinary
See,
thing.
she used to go out with Mrs. Melanson to get girls to join education. They would go
Oh,
from house to house, and because she was Ahmad Ali Shah's daughter, people would trust her with their daughters, and that's how the schooling would start. I think when she was principal of the women's college, when she started, there were less than 10 students to start with. And when she resigned, there were more than 2,500, close to 3,000 students in the college. And the college had a name. It was a reputed college. You could, list it among one of the 10, 12 top colleges of the country. It was like that. And the students from that college have shown in whatever they have done. In fact, I had a student write to me the other day when she had heard that this program, and she said she was like Goddess Ethna. She described her like that. So there are people who keep talking about her in such terms, but somewhere Mrs. Nirja Dar has also mentioned that she was also had the name of Hunter Wali because
Bantrawali.
yes, as a student, some Tonga fellow tried to make a pass at her or something. Then she took his that chanta, and with that chanta, she gave him a good thrashing. So, so
I
that's how it
also
is.
heard Nirjaji told me on the show that there was one girl. I mean, girls are very innocent, but your families they teach you wrong way. So she was very much in love with some Pakistan, something like that. And Nirjaji said that she asked that to leave the institution immediately, go and settle down in Pakistan. I mean, she was such a stern and clear-headed personality. I mean, she loved
Uh,
this nation very much. Yeah.
Students also used to say that when she'd come to the assembly, everybody thought that she was looking at them, so they would be so afraid of her that she's watching us. So that's
What do
how
you
things.
think, Munirji? What was his which one of her reform stuck you, and what do you think is the most revolutionary reform she did? Although I mean, it's a very complicated one.
Emancipation of the women. She always said that you must stand straight. You must not let yourself be exploited. She was against the exploitation of women, and that is what she
Exploitation.
stood by. Yeah, they had a college magazine called Pamposh,
Hmm.
and the emblem also said the motto was "Light to Enlighten."
Hmm.
So that was her motto in life: light to enlighten. She wanted to upbring the ladies, because the ladies were always exploited. They were always used, you know, and
Yeah,
they
I mean,
never
because
got
there
their
was a
say. Yeah,
tendency in the society
it's
all over like that.
yes. So she always said that you must walk with your head high, and you must not let yourself at any cost be exploited by anybody.
Yes, I can see. I mean, she was a great institution. She was not. She was. It's more like in looking from a very different perspective and deriving out your own perspective from that. That's
And the
how.
day and the day she felt that she could not be of any use to the college, she just left it. She just put in her papers and she left the college. That's it. And after that is history.
Tell us
Because
something. Yeah, that's so
because
wonderful.
she sacrificed everything for the college. As I told you, these offers were given to her. She was even offered the vice chancellor of the JNK University, but she always declined, because for her, she wanted to see that the women of Kashmir can stand up, can fight for
That's great.
themselves, yes, and
Exactly.
can take care of themselves without anybody, taking them for a ride. That was her
She
motto.
understood everything so well.
So,
That's
and
like a visionary.
nobody could stand in her path. I mean, she would not tolerate any, no matter what power it be. If she knew
Lumpen
what was
element.
correct, if she knew what was correct, then that was it. Nobody else could shake her from her stand.
How did you deal with the politicians, of those times who always thought that they were the kings? Politicians in those times always thought that they are more than the
Uh,
monarch.
जुगल जी ऐसा है कि I come from a family where nobody bowed down to anybody's politics. They'd much rather not be there rather than you would have heard Dr. Nasir, Dr. Girja never went
Yeah,
to the they never went to the secretariat.
they
So
never
did
win.
yes, so did Miss Mehmooda Ahmed never went to the secretariat. Nobody
And
dare call them to the secretariat. It was like that.
Riji, I want to know her role. Let's slightly go to the lighter vein of it. I want to know about her role in your life, in Dr. Nasir's life, and not only the mentorship, the moral and other aspects. How actively she was involved, and what was the dialogue frequency of your dialogue? Although she was a public figure, she was doing something very revolutionary. She changed the entire paradigm and structure of thinking, conventional thinking in Kashmir. But yet, she was a family person. She belonged to a family. You were her family. She was mother to you, and
First,
she was mother to Nasir Saab also. I don't know. Nasir was her brother. Yeah, Dr.
yes,
Nasir was her brother. So how did she?
but she was a
How
mother.
was
She was a mother to all the three brothers,
okay?
Nasir, Zamir, and Shamji. She was a mother to them. She was a mother to me. Now I will tell you first about myself. You said how to. My mother left for UK to do her MA when I was 4 years old,
Oh,
and she came back after 3 years. For those 3 years, I'm not saying only those 3 years. Those 3 years, I was with my aunt. So for me, she was more than my mother.
did she interfere in your education, the way you should get dressed, the way we should live, where you should get educated? Did you discuss your plans, your charters with her about your
Ev-
future plans? Yeah,
Everything, we were a joint family. We were not. It was not just one person. So this was 14 people, and
oh,
anything that
great.
was done was debated between 14 people, and you never had 14 people all looking at the same thing. Each one. But she had
Different
always
perspective, different
she always
perception.
had the final. She always had the final say.
She was the final
Yeah,
authority.
when in the family there was need for money to send people to study or whatever, money was borrowed from Shivji Bhagati. So he was the bank for the family, and
Yeah,
every month he would come on a cycle to collect his EMI,
that's so
and
wonderful.
all this was done by her. She took care of everybody's needs. She left nobody without help.
And
Uh,
she would gel well with Dr. Nasir. They had some
Everybody,
because they were busy
everybody,
personalities, busy public personalities. Yet they
everybody,
would find time. Yeah.
everybody. You see, to all the three brothers, she was the mother figure. So there was no question of gelling.
Why don't you share some of the anecdotes of you were with her, Nasir Saab with her, or your uncles with her? Some of the fine, beautiful, rememberable, fun-loving anecdotes that you had with her.
Oh, there's so many because well, I don't know how to describe. I mean, I meant so much to her. I mean, she was so involved with me that if anything happened to me, it would just disturb her beyond any. You can't just imagine. If I went out on the scooter and she would know that he'll drive fast or something like that, oh, she would be absolutely desperate and tell me, please don't do this, please don't do this, because she would be so caring. She'd
That
say, I'll
defined
jump
one
in
night.
front of your car if you're going to drive so fast. It's like that.
No, she certainly she Doctor this Professor Nirja Motu talked very high about her, and he said that if our principal was Mehmooda ji, and she was our inspiration. Whatever we learned from her. I mean,
This
our
was
all
it was as
self-esteem
I
came
told
from
you,
her.
it was I just told you it was a team. It was a team. It was a team comprising of these people that I named. I told you, and Nirja ji, Krishna Misri ji, Amina Paul. Uh, there used to be a Safia Hassan also there, Sakina Hassan, Bilqis Fatima, Professor Andrabi, Sugra
Professor
Hafiz.
Andra.
Yeah, they were Mrs. Cole, Professor Cole. She was, I think, teaching botany, if I'm not mistaken. They were the pillars of, and not to forget Mr. Hirdenath Miskin and Mr. Madhusudan, the accountant, because I
Masuda.
don't want to do disservice to those people who have everybody put in their best. Everybody did what more than what was required of them. But because they knew that the captain of the ship will not stand anything less, so they kept the captain's flag flying high and they
She
put in
got
their
she got a Padam Shri at the time of in 2006, and
yes.
a personality which had already done the entire work. But anyway, somewhere down the line, it was an honor, and I think yet a personality like that who had a interaction in connection with the national personalities like Indira Gandhi, like all these big personalities who knew her very well, very nearby, closely. I mean, coming like a Padam Shri at a age such a late time. I would say the timing was misplaced, but yet I think
I have my reservations with Padam Shri. I think Padam Shri should be given in their 30s and 40s
yes,
because they should be given so that people are encouraged to do even more than what they are doing. You give them to people when they are 80, 70,
and
75. Yes.
posthumously people give
So
it.
it actually is, of course, you're honoring them. It's a great honor. But
It's an
that
honor.
it loses its, when you pin a medal onto a soldier
Significant.
for bravery, he becomes even more braver because he has then to take care of the medal that is. But if you give an 80-year-old
That's
person
so
a
true.
Padma Shri, you see, by the time people have forgotten. Today, I am telling you what Mehmooda ji was. Believe me, she was something which is unimaginable. Nobody can imagine what she was.
Somebody has described her saintly, a saint in the disguise of a modern woman.
I told you that she was a mother to everybody. She took care of everybody. There was not a soul she did not take care of. And in the family, be it people who were away from the family, she would take care of them. Be it people who were in the family, she would take care of them. For her, there was no distinction.
Her days in Lahore had some impressionable effect on her personality.
Yes, her student days chiseled her into what she was because that's where she was influenced by people like Faiz Ahmad Faiz and all the leftists that
Bishop
she came
Chandra.
into contact with, Chetan Anand, Balraj Sani, Inder Gujral. They were a part of her that students they had. forget the name. They had a name for that, what they would say, and she was a part of that. And that really, for was the one which formed her to what she was. And she was ready to come and fight for the women, and that's what she did. She came and she fought for the women to the best of her capabilities.
I think we all, this generation, which is so successful, women especially, we all, irrespective of whatever our religion, caste, creed was there, they all owe something to Mehmooda ji, because personalities like her, they managed, they propagated, they propelled this whole understanding and concept of emancipation and liberation and education of women. That's why
After,
this equal, yeah,
after she left the college, she became a little secluded because she had given up something which she had all her life struggled for, and she would read and write. Uh, I'm afraid that nothing got published which should have got published. Fault is ours that we did not take her. We didn't take proper care of what she wrote, and she was there for 2 3 years. And then in '77, when Mrs. Gandhi lost after the emergency, and people started going away from her, she went back to her as a support to her,
all right, great.
and
That's
she
like a
stayed
great
and she stayed there with
stature.
her till she was alive. The day she died, the very next day she came back. Though she continued to be a member of the AICC, but she came back. So
Yes, she was a member of AICC.
that
She
is how
remained.
far she could go for a friend.
She was also a member legislative council
Three
for a
years
period of time,
she was
two
member,
years.
because
Was
they are
because yeah.
appointed on a term basis. No, so that vacant post was for 3 years, so she got it for 3 years.
Was it an honorarium or it was just a button into the political arena, something like that?
No, there's no such thing as honorarium. They all get their
No,
salaries, and
I
they
mean
get.
not literally. I'm saying honorarium means was it simply being a member legislature council? Was it simply an honor, or it was a plunging stepping stone to enter into the political arena?
No, if she wanted to enter into the political arena as a person, full fledged, she could have been right in the middle of it, because she was right
Earlier,
in the
much
middle of politics. I mean, she was in '65 when Haji Pir we captured from the
much
Pakistanis.
big.
Yes, she, along with I think Mrs. Misri was also there, Dr. Jagat Mohini, जिनका आपने जिक्र किया, वो भी थी, कुंती सानी भी थी. They all went to Haji Pir and helped the people there. The people were there in such a bad shape. They had they had not even seen the minor things of life. रोटी चावल आटा तक नहीं, तेल तक नहीं उन्होंने देखा हुआ था. So she did so much work for them, along with this team of people that I mentioned to you, Dr. Jagat Mohani, Kunti Sani, Mrs. Misri. They were the ones who uh, did active service that time.
She became member legislative council when, which was the time period?
It was, I think it was 77, 76 or something. I'm not very sure of the dates. My mind,
76
yeah.
during Sheikh Saab's time period.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was just an honor given to our services to the
Yes, it was.
institution.
It was as an honor, because they needed, they gave it to dignified dignitaries. So that seat is for dignitaries. They nominate them to that.
They could have made her a minister of education or something like that.
But she had so
Uh,
many offers. She had offers from the center. This is what I'm trying to tell you. She had offers from the center, but she never went for that. She just, as I told you, she Katina Jola. She just had a Jola when she left. That's it. That's how she
what
was.
were Munirji, what were her personal pastimes? I mean, there are every woman, whether she's in public player or not, they have some personal choices. At times, a person relieving certain things which they personally love, like or love. What were her, special things which she really adored doing?
She didn't have any time. She was so engrossed with the college that she had very little time. And the joint family is always a chaos. So when you come into the joint family, then again you don't have time, because you have somebody asking you for this thing, somebody asking you for that thing. It's not that you have to deal to one person. You have to deal to 20 people. So it doesn't give you. She had no time for herself. She had no time for herself.
Her ideal, her ideal. What was her ideal in the contemporary
Oh,
India?
she was a true Gandhian and true Jawaharlal Nehru's follower. She followed
Socialist.
the Oh yes, she followed them to the hilt. As I told you, no jewel, never wore any jewelry, and in the house nobody wore any jewelry. Whatever jewelry they had, my grandmother, whatever jewelry had, 1962, they after the Chinese War, there was this collection of gold for the army and all. They gave it to they gave it there in 1962.
Yeah, I think this morality and the strength comes from the family as well, because your grandfather and all, they were all the men of great, esteem
And
and great character and
I
morality.
can tell you this with great this thing, that nobody could lift a finger on this family and say that they have usurped a penny or they have taken a penny. All the
That's
members of the family, irrespective.
Nidhi, anything else you want to share and talk about, which is not yet covered in the periphery of this conversation?
Well, I mean,
Did she write articles? Did she write a book, or did she become an author? Did
she
she
was
help?
she was a voracious writer. She wrote a lot of things, but she never published. It never got published. I'm
Oh,
sure it will be still there in her
that is a
paper.
socialistic bent of mind. That's even myself also
Absolutely,
have written so
absolutely.
many things you don't want
She
to
was
publish.
absolute.
No
She went
publicity.
to Russia, and I think there she also met the first lady who went up to space. She met her also, and she met the Palestinian leader also there. What was his name? She was
But come
very
to
well.
he came to
She
Kashmir.
Yes, she was very well
Brezhnev,
connected.
Brezhnev, and that
Yes, she was very well connected. She cut across the party lines. It didn't matter.
Marshal
Yes,
Bulganian had come to Kashmir.
Bulgarian came, but he didn't come to the college. He didn't. He did not come to the college. This She cut across lines of all political parties.
She was
Everybody
a
respected her. Everybody,
understood.
and as I told you, Ramamurthy's daughter stayed with us. Jyoti Basu's son stayed with us, and during the partition, there were BPL Bedi's family stayed with us.
People very.
The Biswas family stayed with us because they were afraid at that time, and so the house was like a shelter. It was like a camp for people who were.
Dethroned.
So that's how it was. My grandmother, 40 people in Udhampur were killed, but never was there a rancor or never anybody talked about that. And there was another gentleman, Dr. Nanak Chand, his family was also killed, and he was one of the best friends of the family. And when we were in Jammu, every morning he would come home and have breakfast with us. That's how it was. Never it was mentioned. Never nobody talked about this. It was as if this is a closed chapter. Young girls became widows, and that's how it was. But Kashmir
But
was not like that. But Kashmir was not like that.
that was different. That was
It,
different. I was a small child. I still recollect those things. You were just telling about her ideal personality.
yes,
There was
yes.
someone around whom she thought to be an ideal.
She followed Mahatma Gandhi and Panditji to the hilt.
Only Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit.
Yes, they were her.
They were
They
her
were
the
her. Yes,
ideals.
yes.
Anything else you want to say about her personality, which we have missed on till now?
Well, I think by and large, I must only apologize to the teachers whose names I have not been able to take, or I have
Doesn't
forgotten, or
matter.
I must apologize to their kin, next of kin, because some of them may not be there. But believe me, each one of them put in their best effort, and it was not easy. As I told you, it was not those days was not easy. Even like conducting a tour or doing any job
Most
was
times.
not easy because you were not having the tools of accessing. You had to depend on letters, and you had to depend on
Yeah, the
those.
technology was not advanced in those
Yes,
days. It was still in that.
and you took the girls out. It was a big responsibility,
Ah,
and
girls were always a
and
responsibility.
and nothing should happen, because even a minor thing happens, it's blown out of proportion, and that would be the end of the tours. But they continued without, because each one of the teachers really put in their best.
Apart from the politicians, son spoiled brats, I think by and large Kashmiris were very peace-loving, gentle. They would not go to the hooliganistic that level that much. I mean, to
The
worry about.
Kashmir of my childhood, I know that if you had to slaughter a chicken, not everybody could do it. You had to wait for somebody to come. In Kashmiri, they say, "Pyar se Rahman Bhat hi sui kairi." So it's but Pyara Rahman Bhat se, otherwise nobody would do it. And
Yeah, there are
nobody would go near there also. This was how they were,
many stories like that.
how docile they were.
Hello, that was a very wonderful, very candid conversation. I think we could go on because this is a story. This is an anecdotal based program, and we love to have anecdotes of, especially such a
Yes,
great personalities.
I must apologize. I'm not a historian, and if
No,
somebody
no, no.
does
You
really
did it very
some
well.
does research, they will probably give you a much better insight into that. And secondly,
You
I was speaking about my mother, so everybody may
yes,
not.
yes. Your mother was another great lady in your life. You had three women. One was
Yes, I
Girjadar. She
had
was your
three,
aunt.
and each mother outdid the other, so I do not know which one was the real mother.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Your real mother. She used to also. She became a director of school
She was the
education.
director of education. She was secretary tourism. She was member public service commission, and
Oh,
she came from a family of not a very rich family from Sathu Barbar Shah.
Chaturbal.
And yes,
That's my area.
yes, and
Our area, rather. Yeah.
after marriage she did her FA, BA, B.Ed, MA, and that's how the family encouraged her. And my aunt Mehmooda ji had the big hand in that. She was the one who saw to it. She encouraged her. She saw to it that she would get the best possible education and not just leave it halfway.
That's such a
So that's why
wonderful.
she took care of me also. She told her, "You go, I will take care of your son." And she left her son to, it was all because of Mahmooda ji, it was all because of her. And I said, when the money was required, it was Shivji Bhagati. She would take money from him and send everybody abroad.
So that's a wonderful. You had your stories of bonhomie. Those days were great, and such a great personality
Oh,
came in.
those days, you cannot imagine. Those days was just out of the. It's very difficult
Thank you very
to.
much, Munirji. I would like last question. I would like to. Before we go, and we'll have a national anthem if possible. And before we go, I would like to ask one question: that if Mahmooda ji would have been alive today in today's technological world,
She would not have
what
been a
would
happy person. She would not have been a happy person if she saw Kashmir what it is today. She would not be a happy person. She would
Inferno?
not be happy.
Kashmir was an
No,
inferno. She must have been very pathetic at this
she
at
would
this
not
whole
have been a
scenario.
happy. She would not. She would have said, "What has happened to my Kashmir?" She would not have been a happy person.
And what message would have she liked to share with the youngsters of the country or the world or the youth?
That
Both are
they
the
should go
same.
back to their. They should go back to their roots, see what they were, and be what they were, and not what they are being driven to be.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. With that great note, we'd like to conclude this wonderful talk and conversation, Moriji, with you. I would like to say that we are on the eve of our independence. Before we go, I think, if possible, I'll just like to bring in national anthem, and then we
Yes,
depart.
I would also like to wish all the viewers a happy 75th Independence Day. And as I told you, it was a privilege to talk about the lady who fought for the independence and lived all her life for that.
Freedom fighter. She was a freedom fighter, liberator
Yes.
herself. I'll just see that if we have a video available. Uh, yes, we'll just go for a national anthem, and then
Thank you for having me, and thank you all the listeners for listening.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you very much. So that was Munirji, Jai Hind, and once
Jai Hind.
again, you
Thank
congratulated everyone. Thank you very much. You joined us on the studio. About we had a understanding, broader understanding, and a very very candid encounters to know about this wonderful women personality of modern Kashmir, to whom we all, especially the female women, they owe their present mindset, their present level of emancipation, and their success. May Master bless her soul with great composure and great direction. I think she's already a blessed soul who was probably sent to this planet for some reform, for some help. So, with that, I would like to conclude. Thanks a lot, Panirji. You
Thank you
visited
very much
us.
for having me on your show. Thank you. God bless you and wish you all the best for your future shows.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
So, that was Munir Shah, nephew of Mehmooda Shah. We had a very candid conversation. I loved it so much. I wish that it could have been extended further, but then we had the constraints of time. I think he was very, very clear, and he made us understand the complete personality of this great, great, remarkable human being, the legend, the educationist, with so much discipline and so much compassionate in her heart at the same time. Probably she was a saint, as somebody said, who was sent into the human form to help the evolution and help the women of this world, of the Kashmir, to be liberated, to be educated, to be not to be exploited, as he rightly said. Before we finish this wonderful program, I would like to quote one of my favorite poetess, Maya Angelou, who says, "You may shoot me with your words." Her famous poem, "I'll Rise." "You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like air, I'll rise." Thank you very much. I think we had a wonderful day today on the eve of our Independence Day. We talked about such a wonderful personality. Before I go, I normally, recite a couplet. And today we talked about Faiz Ahmad Faiz, a couplet from Faiz Ahmad Faiz before we complete this program. एक तर्ज तगफुल है एक तर्ज तगफुल है सो वो उनको मुबारक एक तर्ज तगफुल है सो वो उनको मुबारक एक अर्ज तमन्ना है करते रहेंगे. So that was Faiz Ahmad Faiz. With that, Shabakar, good night, Jai Hind, all the best.